I used to think my Grandma Aurora was an open book. A well-loved, dog-eared copy perhaps, with familiar stories etched into the lines around her blue eyes. Eyes as clear and bright as a summer sky after a rain. Those eyes had seen a lot, I knew that much. But I believed I knew the stories they held. Tales of a simple life, a loving marriage to my Grandpa Leo, a quiet joy found in tending her garden and baking the most incredible apple pies the world had ever tasted. Aurora. Even her name sounded like a promise, a whisper of dawn after a long night. She was the anchor of our family, a warm, steady presence that radiated love and acceptance. Her hands, gnarled with age and etched with the map of a life well lived, were always there for a hug, a comforting squeeze, or a gentle pat on the knee. I remember sitting beside her on the porch swing, the scent of honeysuckle heavy in the air, listening to her hum softly as she shelled peas, her voice a low, soothing rumble like distant thunder. In my childhood, she was my safe harbor, the one person who always made me feel seen and understood, even when I didn't understand myself. I confided in her things I wouldn't dare tell my own mother, secrets whispered under the shade of the old oak tree in her backyard. She never judged, never scolded, just listened with those knowing blue eyes and offered words of gentle wisdom that seemed to untangle the knots in my heart. After she passed, the house felt empty. Not just empty of her physical presence, but empty of something more profound, a light that had always shone within its walls. We all grieved, of course, each in our own way. My mother busied herself with the practicalities, the arrangements, the sorting through. My father retreated into a quiet sadness, spending hours in the garden, tending to Aurora's beloved roses. And I wandered through the house, touching her things, breathing in the faint scent of lavender and cinnamon that still clung to her clothes, desperately trying to recapture the feeling of her presence. It was during one of these aimless wanderings that I found it. The attic was a dusty, forgotten place, filled with the ghosts of generations past. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the boarded-up windows, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air like tiny spirits. The air was thick with the smell of old wood, mothballs, and something else. A faint sweet scent that I couldn't quite place, a scent that tugged at a memory I couldn't quite grasp. I was searching for something specific, a quilt Aurora had made for me when I was a child, a patchwork of colorful fabrics that held countless memories stitched into its seams. I knew she kept it stored in the old wooden chest in the attic, the one she called her memory box. The chest was tucked away in a dark corner, almost hidden beneath a pile of old blankets and forgotten toys. It was heavier than I remembered, the wood cool and smooth beneath my fingertips. As I lifted the lid, a musty odor wafted out, mingling with the other scents of the attic. There it was, my quilt folded neatly on top. But beneath the quilt, something else caught my eye. It was a diary. Not the kind of brightly colored lock-and-key diary a young girl might keep, filled with crushes and dreams. This was different. This was old. Bound in dark, cracked leather, its edges worn and frayed. It looked like something that had been hidden away for a very long time. The leather felt stiff and dry beneath my fingers like ancient parchment. A delicate silver clasp held it closed, tarnished with age. My heart began to pound in my chest. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the diary. It felt wrong somehow to intrude on Aurora's private thoughts. But the curiosity was too strong to resist. I gently unclasped the diary, the silver making a soft, clicking sound in the silent attic. The pages inside were filled with handwriting, delicate and flowing, written in faded ink that was almost brown with age. The scent of the ink, mixed with the scent of the leather, filled my nostrils, transporting me to another time, another place. I recognized Aurora's handwriting, but it was different. More formal, more elegant than the simple script she used in her letters and grocery lists. The first entry was dated 1942. A shiver ran down my spine. 1942. The war. I knew very little about Aurora's life before she met my grandfather. She rarely spoke of it, and when she did, it was only in vague, general terms. I knew she had lived in Europe during the war, that she had lost her parents at a young age, that she had somehow managed to escape and come to America. But that was all. As I began to read, the attic faded away. The dust motes, the sunlight, the scent of old wood all disappeared. I was transported back in time, into the world of my Grandma Aurora, a world I never knew existed. The diary revealed a life far more complex, more dramatic, more heartbreaking than anything I could have ever imagined. It spoke of forbidden love, of wartime sacrifice, of secrets buried deep within the heart. It told of a young woman named Aurora, not the sweet, gentle grandmother I knew, but a woman of courage, resilience, and unwavering determination. I learned of a love affair with a man named, well, I'll get to that. A love that blossomed amidst the chaos and destruction of war. A love that was both passionate and dangerous. A love that was ultimately torn apart by forces beyond their control. I learned of her involvement in the resistance, of her bravery in the face of unimaginable danger, of the sacrifices she made to protect others. I learned of a secret she had kept hidden for over 70 years, a secret that had shaped her life in ways I was only beginning to understand. The diary was a window into a hidden world, a world of passion, intrigue, and betrayal. It was a revelation, a complete and utter shattering of everything I thought I knew about my Grandma Aurora. I sat there in the attic for hours, lost in the pages of the diary, my heart aching with a mixture of sadness, wonder, and awe. When I finally closed the diary, the sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the attic floor. I felt as though I had aged years in just a few hours. The diary was more than just a collection of words on paper. It was a key that unlocked a hidden part of my grandmother's soul. It was a legacy, a gift from the past that promised to reveal the truth about who she really was, and perhaps in the process reveal something about myself as well. The discovery of the diary has changed everything. It has opened my eyes to the fact that everyone, even the people we think we know best, has secrets. That even the most ordinary seeming lives can be filled with extraordinary stories. And that the past is never truly dead. It lives on in the memories, the objects, and the stories that we inherit from those who came before us. My daughter, bless her heart, tried to take my house. It's a long story, one intertwined with this diary, with Aurora's secrets, with betrayals and unexpected allies. But it all started with this diary, with this hidden legacy, with the truth that my grandma wasn't just a baker of apple pies and a tender of roses. She was a warrior, a survivor, a woman whose life was far more extraordinary than I could have ever imagined. And it seems even in death she had a plan. If you'd like to keep me company as we explore these memories, please subscribe and stay close. This is going to be a long story, but I promise you it's one worth hearing. It's the story of my Grandma Aurora, and it's a story that deserves to be told. And maybe, just maybe, it will help us all understand a little bit more about the power of love, the weight of secrets, and the enduring legacy of the past. The scent of lavender and dust motes dancing in the afternoon sun. That's always how I remember Willow Creek. Not just a place but a feeling. A blanket woven from the softest wool, warmed by the hearth. Even now, so many years gone by, I can close my eyes and find myself standing at the edge of the cornfields, the wind whispering secrets through the stalks. Willow Creek wasn't on any important maps, just a little dip in the land where the river bent lazy and slow. The kind of place where everyone knew your name and your grandmother's name before that. The kind of place where change came slow like the turning of the seasons. The late 1930s. The world was a troubled place, I knew that even then. Whispers on the radio, worried faces in town. But Willow Creek, bless its heart, held onto its peace like a miser guarding gold. Our farm wasn't much, just a few acres carved out from the rolling hills. Enough to keep us fed, enough to keep a roof over our heads. Papa, with his strong hands and quiet smile, worked the land from dawn till dusk. Mama, her hands always busy, kept the house humming with life. Baking bread, mending clothes, tending to her roses. It was a simple life, but it was ours. I was Aurora then, a girl on the cusp of womanhood. My days were filled with the ordinary magic of childhood. Helping Mama in the garden, chasing butterflies in the meadow, reading beneath the old oak tree that stood sentinel at the edge of our property. I loved stories more than anything. Tales of faraway lands, of brave knights and beautiful princesses, of adventures beyond the horizon. They filled my head with dreams, with a quiet yearning for something more. Thomas, my older brother, he was different. His eyes were always on the sky, following the birds as they soared above. He dreamed of flying, of building his own airplane, of seeing the world from above the clouds. He'd spend hours sketching designs in his notebook, his brow furrowed in concentration. Papa, he encouraged Thomas's passion, even though he couldn't quite understand it. He saw the fire in Thomas's eyes, the unwavering determination, and he knew that something special burned within him. Lily, my younger sister, she was a poet at heart. She saw beauty in everything, in the smallest wildflower, in the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves. She'd write her poems in a little leather-bound book, her words flowing like the river that ran through our town. She was quiet and sensitive, easily moved by the world around her. I always felt a fierce protectiveness towards her, a need to shield her from the harshness that I knew existed beyond Willow Creek. Evenings were the best. After supper, we'd all gather on the porch, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight. Papa would tell stories of his own childhood, of growing up on the farm, of the hardships and the joys. Mama would hum softly, rocking gently in her chair. Thomas would point out constellations in the night sky, explaining the myths and legends behind them. Lily would recite her poems, her voice soft and melodic. And I would listen, soaking it all in, feeling the warmth of my family surrounding me. Sometimes, though, even in the midst of all that love and contentment, a small seed of unease would sprout within me. I'd look out at the endless fields, at the unchanging landscape, and I'd feel a restlessness stirring in my soul. It wasn't dissatisfaction, not exactly. It was more like a sense that there was something more out there, something I was meant to discover. I remember one night in particular. Thomas was talking about the war brewing in Europe, about the airplanes being built, about the brave pilots who were already taking to the skies. Lily was writing in her notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. Papa was smoking his pipe, his gaze fixed on the horizon. And I was staring at the moon, feeling a strange pull, a longing for something I couldn't quite name. "What are you thinking about, Aurora?" Mama asked, her voice gentle. I hesitated for a moment, unsure how to explain. "I don't know," I said finally. "Just wondering what's out there." Mama smiled knowingly. "There's a whole world waiting for you, Aurora," she said. "But don't forget to appreciate the beauty that's right here in front of you." I nodded, but I knew even then that my heart was already set on exploring that world, on discovering its secrets, on making my own mark. It wasn't that I didn't love Willow Creek or my family. It was just that I felt like I was meant for something more. That feeling, that quiet yearning, it never truly left me. It stayed with me like a constant hum beneath the surface of my life. It fueled my dreams, it shaped my choices, it ultimately led me down a path I never could have imagined. I remember the smell of Mama's rosewater soap, the feel of the rough cotton of my dress against my skin, the taste of Papa's apple pie, warm from the oven. Those are the things that stay with you, the small everyday moments that make up a life. And they're the things that I clung to, even when the world turned upside down, even when everything I knew and loved was threatened. Willow Creek. It was my haven, my sanctuary, the place where I first learned to dream. And even though I left it behind, it never truly left me. It's in my blood, in my bones, in the very core of my being. It's the foundation upon which I built my life, the anchor that kept me grounded, even when the storms raged around me. And I know, looking back, that Mama was right. There was a whole world waiting for me. But the beauty that was right there in front of me in Willow Creek with my family, that was the most precious thing of all. It was the love that sustained me, the memories that comforted me, the legacy that I carried with me, always. And it all started there, in that little town, with the lavender scent and the dust motes dancing in the afternoon sun. A world I didn't know at the time was about to change forever. A change that would test the very fabric of our family and the peace of Willow Creek. A change that would force me, Aurora, to become someone I never imagined I could be. The summer after I turned 17, the world began to whisper, then shout. It wasn't a sudden roar, but a creeping dread that seeped into the sweet tea and lazy afternoons of Willow Creek. At first, it was just static on the radio, interrupting our favorite swing tunes with news from places we couldn't quite picture: Poland, Czechoslovakia, names that felt foreign and far away. My father, Thomas, would lean closer to the radio, his brow furrowed, a strange glint in his eyes. He'd always been restless, never quite content with the quiet predictability of farm life. I think, in some corner of his heart, he yearned for adventure, for something bigger than the endless fields of corn and the comforting rhythm of the seasons. The war, even from a distance, seemed to offer him that. "Think of the opportunities, Aurora," he'd say, his voice a little too loud, a little too excited. "A chance to see the world, to make a real difference." My mother, bless her gentle soul, would just shake her head. her hands fluttering nervously in her apron. "Thomas, please," she pleaded. "Don't talk like that. It's a terrible thing, war. Nothing but heartache and loss." Grandma, her eyes clouded with a wisdom that seemed to stretch back centuries, would simply watch and listen, saying nothing. But I could see the worry etched on her face, the silent prayers forming on her lips. She remembered the Great War, the one they said would end all wars. She knew better. The whispers grew louder. Letters arrived from cousins in the north, talking about factories ramping up production, about young men enlisting, about the air thick with a sense of impending doom. Even in Willow Creek, the general store started rationing sugar and flour. Suddenly, the simple act of baking a cake felt like a patriotic duty, a small act of defiance against the darkness gathering on the horizon. I felt it too, a shift in the very air. The carefree laughter of the children playing in the creek seemed a little strained, the evening sunsets a little more melancholy. My own dreams, once filled with romantic notions of love and marriage, began to feel frivolous, almost shameful. How could I think about dances and picnics when the world was teetering on the brink of chaos? I started spending more time with Grandma, helping her in the garden, listening to her stories. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She spoke of hardship and resilience, of loss and love, of the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. She taught me how to preserve food, how to mend clothes, how to find strength in silence. She was preparing me, I realized now, for a world that was about to change forever. Then he arrived. It was late afternoon, the air thick with the scent of honeysuckle and freshly cut hay. I was sitting on the porch swing, reading a book, trying to escape the growing anxiety that had become my constant companion. A dust cloud appeared in the distance, slowly resolving into a jeep, bouncing along the dirt road. It pulled up in front of our house and a young man stepped out. He was in uniform, but not like any uniform I'd ever seen. It was foreign somehow, the cut of the fabric, the shade of the green. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that were the color of the stormy sea. He moved with a quiet grace, a sense of controlled energy that set him apart from the farm boys I knew. He stood for a moment just looking at the house, his gaze lingering on the porch on me. There was something in his expression, a weariness, a sadness, but also a flicker of something else, something that made my heart skip a beat. He straightened his shoulders and walked towards the porch. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice low and accented, the words carefully pronounced. "My name is Elias. I am looking for shelter." Shelter. The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. He wasn't just looking for a roof over his head. He was looking for refuge, for a place to hide from something, from someone. My parents came out of the house, drawn by the unfamiliar sound of the jeep. My father, ever the hospitable one, immediately extended his hand. "Welcome, son," he said, his voice booming. "Come on in, you look like you could use a good meal." My mother, ever cautious, eyed him with suspicion. "Where are you from, Elias?" she asked, her voice tight. "What brings you to Willow Creek?" He hesitated for a moment, his eyes flicking towards me, then back to my mother. "I am from Europe," he said. "I am helping with the war effort. I need a place to stay for a short time." He didn't elaborate, and my parents, sensing his reluctance, didn't press him. They were good people, my parents, always willing to help someone in need. But I could see the questions swirling in their eyes, the unspoken doubts. Grandma came out then, her presence radiating a sense of calm and authority. She looked at Elias, her gaze steady and unwavering. "Welcome, child," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You are welcome here. We have plenty of room." She turned to my mother. "Martha, set another place at the table. The boy looks half-starved." And just like that, Elias was taken in. He was given a room in the attic, a place that had been empty for years. He helped with chores around the farm, his movements efficient and precise. He spoke little, but he listened intently, his eyes always watching, always observing. I found myself drawn to him, despite my better judgment. He was so different from anyone I had ever met, so mysterious, so damaged. I wanted to know his story, to understand the sadness that haunted his eyes. We would talk sometimes in the evenings after the work was done. He would tell me stories about his homeland, about the rolling hills and ancient castles, about the music and the art. He spoke of a world that was both beautiful and terrifying, a world that was being torn apart by war. He never spoke about his role in the war, only hinting at the dangers he had faced, the sacrifices he had made. I knew he was hiding something big, something that could put us all in danger. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, he turned to me, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. "You are too young for this, Aurora," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "You deserve a life of peace and happiness. But the world is not a safe place anymore." He reached out and took my hand, his touch sending a shiver down my spine. "Promise me," he said, his voice urgent. "Promise me you will be careful. Promise me you will protect yourself." I looked into his eyes and I saw the truth. He was in danger. He was running from something and his presence was putting us all at risk. But I couldn't turn him away. I was drawn to him, not just by curiosity or attraction, but by a deep sense of empathy, a feeling that we were connected in some way, bound together by a shared understanding of the darkness that was engulfing the world. "I promise," I said, my voice trembling. "I promise I will be careful." But even as I spoke the words, I knew that my life, the life I had known in Willow Creek, was over. The war had come to our doorstep, and with it, a young man with secrets in his eyes and a past that threatened to consume us all. And I, Aurora, was about to be swept away by the tide, into a world of danger, intrigue, and choices I never imagined I would have to make. The innocent girl who dreamed of love and marriage was about to become a woman forged in the fires of war. A woman who would have to fight for her survival, for her family, and for the man she was beginning to love. The silence in the house after my daughter left was heavy, suffocating. It wasn't just the absence of her shouting her accusations, but the hollow echo of what we had lost, the trust, the love that had once bound us. Grandma's plan, whatever it was, felt like a lifeline thrown into a turbulent sea. I clung to it, not knowing if it would save me, but desperate to believe it could. But amidst the turmoil with my daughter, a fragile bud of hope had begun to bloom. Elias. Even now, thinking of him brought a warmth that spread through me, chasing away the chill of fear and uncertainty. We met in secret, stolen moments under the watchful gaze of the willow tree down by the creek, or in the hushed stillness of the church after evening prayers. Our conversations were hushed, punctuated by the rustling leaves and the distant rumble of unseen things. He told me stories of his childhood in Germany, of a father who taught him the intricate workings of clocks, and a mother who sang him lullabies in a language I didn't understand, but felt in my heart. He spoke of his passion for science, a burning desire to understand the world, to unlock its secrets. But the war had twisted everything, corrupted the very ideals he held dear. One evening, as the moon cast long shadows across the graveyard, Elias finally confided in me the truth. He wasn't just a refugee fleeing the war. He was a German scientist, a deserter hunted by both sides. His mission was to find a device, an encryption machine of immense power, before it fell into the hands of the Nazis. He called it simply the artifact. He believed it was hidden somewhere in Willow Creek, a secret entrusted to his late mentor, a clockmaker named Herr Schmidt. The revelation stunned me, but it didn't diminish the affection I felt for him. Instead, it deepened it. I saw the burden he carried, the weight of the world pressing down on his young shoulders. He was a man caught between two fires, risking everything for what he believed was right. And in that moment I knew I couldn't stand by and watch him face it alone. Willow Creek was changing too. The war was a distant thunder, but its tremors were reaching us. Strangers arrived, their faces etched with a coldness that belied their attempts at normalcy. They asked questions seemingly innocuous about the town, its history, its people. I saw them watching, their eyes like shards of ice, and a creeping fear began to coil in my stomach. Nazi agents disguised as civilians were infiltrating our quiet town, their presence a shadow that threatened to engulf us all. One afternoon, while helping Elias sort through Herr Schmidt's belongings, we stumbled upon a series of intricate clockwork puzzles hidden within a seemingly ordinary grandfather clock. Each puzzle revealed a fragment of a riddle, a cryptic message hinting at the artifact's location. With Elias's knowledge of clockwork mechanisms and my understanding of local history, we pieced together the clues. They led us to the old church, not the sanctuary itself, but to a hidden labyrinth beneath it, a network of tunnels and chambers that had been sealed off for generations. The thought of venturing into those dark, forgotten depths filled me with dread, but Elias's determination was unwavering. He believed the artifact was there, protected by the secrets of the past. And I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones that I had to go with him. That night, under the cloak of darkness, we descended into the labyrinth. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. The silence was absolute, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water echoing through the tunnels. As we navigated the twisting passages, I felt a shift within myself, a transformation taking place. I was no longer just Aurora, the dutiful daughter, the grieving widow, the betrayed mother. I was becoming someone else, someone stronger, someone capable of facing the darkness and fighting for what I believed in. In my diary, I poured out my fears and my hopes, my devotion to Elias, and my growing sense of purpose. The diary became my confidant, the only place where I could truly be myself, where I could grapple with the moral complexities of our mission. Was I endangering my family by helping Elias? Was I betraying my country by aiding a German deserter? The questions swirled in my mind, but one thing remained clear. I loved Elias and I believed in his cause. I would do whatever it took to protect him, even if it meant risking everything. The labyrinth was a reflection of my own internal struggle, a maze of doubt and fear that I had to navigate in order to reach the truth. As we pressed deeper into the earth, I knew that we were not just searching for an artifact, but for something far more profound, a reason to hope, a reason to believe in the enduring power of love and sacrifice, even in the face of unimaginable darkness. The journey would be dangerous, the stakes were higher than ever, but I was ready. Grandma's plan was unfolding, and I was finally ready to play my part. The air in the hidden chamber tasted of dust and time. It clung to the back of my throat, thick and heavy like a shroud. Elias, ever the pragmatist, held the lantern high, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. The walls were rough-hewn stone, slick with moisture that smelled faintly of mildew and something older, something almost metallic. We were deep beneath the church, deeper than any sane person would dare to venture. The last of the clockmaker's tricks had been a series of pressure plates, each subtly different in weight and placement. Elias, with his uncanny sense for mechanics and my own memory of the church's layout, had navigated them with painstaking care. Now finally we stood before it. A heavy oak door, reinforced with iron bands, almost swallowed by the shadows. It felt less like an entrance and more like a tomb. Elias ran a gloved hand over the cold iron. "Ready?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. I swallowed, my heart hammering against my ribs. "As I'll ever be." He produced a small, intricately carved key from his pocket, the final piece of the puzzle. It slid into the lock with a satisfying click, and with a groan that echoed through the chamber, the door swung inward, revealing a room bathed in an ethereal, otherworldly light. It wasn't the light of the lantern, nor any electric bulb. It emanated from the artifact itself, resting on a simple stone pedestal in the center of the room. It was a sphere of polished obsidian, pulsing with a soft, internal luminescence. Runes, ancient and unfamiliar, spiraled across its surface, seeming to shift and writhe in the light. It radiated a palpable energy, a feeling of immense power held in check. We were mesmerized, drawn to it like moths to a flame. We stepped into the room, our footsteps echoing in the sudden, unnerving silence. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and gently touched the surface of the sphere. A jolt like static electricity ran through me and I gasped, pulling my hand back. Images flooded my mind, fleeting glimpses of swirling galaxies, of faces long dead, of futures yet to be born. "Aurora," Elias said, his voice urgent. "What do you see?" Before I could answer, a deafening crash shattered the silence. The heavy oak door splintered inwards, showering us with wood and debris. Figures in dark uniforms, their faces grim and determined, poured into the chamber, weapons raised. The Nazis! They had found us! "Elias!" I cried, fear constricting my throat. He shoved me behind him, drawing his own pistol. "Get the artifact," he yelled. "I'll hold them off." The chamber erupted in chaos. Gunfire flashed, the air filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the screams of men. Elias moved with a speed and precision I hadn't known he possessed, dodging bullets and returning fire with deadly accuracy. But they were too many, too well armed. I scrambled towards the pedestal, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grasp the sphere. A bullet ricocheted off the stone beside me, sending fragments flying. I flinched, but I didn't stop. I had to get it. I had to protect it. As I finally managed to lift the sphere from its resting place, a searing pain ripped through my shoulder. I cried out, stumbling backwards, the artifact nearly slipping from my grasp. I saw Elias, his face contorted in pain, fall to his knees, a dark stain spreading across his chest. "Aurora, go!" he gasped, his voice weak but firm. "Get out of here. Save it." He managed a weak smile, a flicker of the man I loved shining through the pain. He knew this was it. I couldn't leave him. I couldn't. But I knew he was right. The artifact was more important than my own life, more important even than his. He had entrusted it to me, and I couldn't fail him. Tears streamed down my face as I clutched the sphere to my chest and turned to flee. I knew the labyrinth better than they did. It was my only chance. I ran blindly through the twisting passages, the sounds of gunfire and pursuit echoing behind me. My shoulder throbbed with every step, and my breath came in ragged gasps. I stumbled and fell, scraping my knees and elbows, but I forced myself to get back up. I had to keep going. For Elias. For the future. I remembered the clockmaker's words, echoing in my mind. Asterisk, the labyrinth protects those who know its secrets. Asterisk, I focused on the feel of the stone beneath my feet, the subtle changes in temperature and humidity, the faint echoes that revealed the shape of the passages ahead. I moved like a ghost, a shadow blending into the darkness. Finally, I reached a hidden exit, a narrow tunnel that led to the outside world. I emerged into the cold night air, gasping for breath, the sphere still clutched tightly in my arms. I looked back at the church, its dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. Smoke billowed from the shattered windows, a grim testament to the battle that had raged within. Elias was gone. The realization hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. I sank to my knees, sobbing uncontrollably, the artifact digging into my chest. The world seemed to spin around me, a blur of pain and confusion. He was gone. My love. My protector. My friend. Gone because of me. Gone because of this damn thing. I wanted to throw the sphere away, to destroy it, to erase it from existence. But I couldn't. I knew that Elias had sacrificed himself to protect it, to ensure that it didn't fall into the wrong hands. I owed it to him, to his memory, to carry on his mission. I stumbled back to the farmhouse, my body numb, my heart shattered. Grandma Helene met me at the door, her face etched with worry. She took one look at me, at the blood on my clothes and the tears streaming down my face, and she knew. She didn't say a word, but simply wrapped her arms around me, holding me close as I wept. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, the sphere resting beside me, its soft light illuminating the pages of my diary. I picked up my pen, my hand trembling, and began to write. Asterisk, Elias is gone. They took him from me. They took everything. Asterisk, asterisk, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to go on. I feel like I'm drowning in grief, lost in a sea of despair. Asterisk, asterisk, but I can't give up. I won't give up. Elias wouldn't want me to. He gave his life to protect this thing, and I have to honor his sacrifice. I have to find out what it is, what it does, and how to keep it safe. Asterisk, asterisk, I don't know where to start. I don't know who to trust. But I know one thing. I will not let his death be in vain. I will carry on his work. I will fight for what he believed in. I will avenge him. Asterisk, as I wrote, something began to shift within me. The grief was still there, a heavy weight in my chest, but it was slowly being replaced by something else. A burning sense of purpose. Elias's death had changed me, forged me in the fires of loss and determination. I was no longer just Aurora. I was something more. I was a guardian, a protector, a warrior. The diary became my confidant, my solace, my weapon. I poured my heart and soul into its pages, documenting my fears, my hopes, my struggles. It was the only place where I could truly be myself, where I could grieve for Elias and still find the strength to carry on. Each entry was a step forward, a small victory against the darkness that threatened to consume me. I researched the runes on the sphere, poring over ancient texts and forgotten languages. I learned about the clockmaker's legacy, his dedication to protecting the world from those who sought to control it. I discovered the true nature of the artifact, a key not to a treasure or a weapon, but to something far more profound, a key to understanding the very fabric of time itself. The weight of that knowledge was immense, almost unbearable, but I knew that I couldn't falter. Elias had entrusted me with this burden, and I would carry it with honor and courage until my very last breath. That night, as I closed my diary and extinguished the lamp, I made a promise to myself, to Elias, to the future. I would not let his sacrifice be in vain. I would protect the artifact no matter the cost. I would fight for what was right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And I would never ever forget the love that had brought me to this place, the love that had given me the strength to carry on. Because even in the darkest of times, love is the light that guides us home. And Elias, my darling Elias, would forever be my guiding star. The stone scraped against my shoes, each step a ragged breath in the oppressive dark. I stumbled more than walked, adrenaline leaching out, leaving a hollow ache where strength had been. The labyrinth spat me out, unceremoniously, into the chill night air. Elias wasn't beside me. Elias would never be beside me again. Home. The word tasted like ash. The familiar porch swing, the chipped paint on the door, the scent of honeysuckle clinging to the air. All of it felt wrong, a cruel mockery of normalcy. I pushed the door open, the hinges groaning in protest, a sound that echoed the hollowness inside me. The house was quiet, everyone asleep. I moved like a ghost, avoiding the creaky floorboards, desperate to remain unseen. My reflection in the hallway mirror made me recoil. Bruises bloomed on my skin, a roadmap of the night's horrors. Dirt clung to my clothes and my hair was a tangled mess. But it wasn't the physical damage that made me flinch. It was the vacant look in my eyes, the stark absence of something that had been there just hours before. I locked myself in my room, the click of the bolt a pathetic attempt to seal out the world. The artifact, heavy and cold, pressed against my skin beneath my shirt. I pulled it out, turning it over in my hands. It felt alien, a piece of a puzzle I no longer wanted to solve. Elias had sacrificed everything for this, for what? I wanted to scream, to shatter every object in the room, to unleash the fury that clawed at my throat. But I couldn't. I couldn't risk waking anyone, couldn't bear to face their questions, their well-meaning platitudes. So I swallowed it all down, the grief, the rage, the terror, and let it fester in the silence. Sleep wouldn't come. I lay in the darkness, the image of Elias's face seared into my eyelids. His smile, his laugh, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he was deep in thought. All gone. Erased. And I was left to carry the weight of it all. The morning brought a sterile kind of horror. My family gathered, their faces etched with concern. They knew something was wrong, but they couldn't grasp the magnitude of it. The official story was simple, sanitized. Elias had died in an accident, a tragic mishap during a research trip. No mention of labyrinths, of ancient artifacts, of sacrifices made in the dark. I played my part, the grieving sister, the heartbroken aunt. I allowed them to comfort me, to offer their condolences, to tell me that time would heal all wounds. But with every word, the chasm between us widened. They saw sorrow, but they couldn't see the jagged edges of guilt, the burning ember of purpose that was beginning to flicker within me. The diary. It sat on my nightstand untouched. It had been Elias's confidant, his silent witness. Now it was mine. I hesitated, my hand trembling as I reached for it. It felt like a violation, an intrusion into a space that was once sacred. I opened it slowly, the pages brittle with age. His handwriting, so familiar, filled the pages. Notes, sketches, observations. He had chronicled everything, every detail of his research, every step he had taken towards uncovering the truth. I read for hours, losing myself in his words. The pain was a constant companion, a dull ache that throbbed behind my eyes. But as I read, something else began to emerge. A sense of connection, a feeling that he was still with me, guiding me. He had left clues, hidden messages within his notes. References to obscure texts, maps with marked locations, cryptic symbols that seemed to hold a deeper meaning. He had known the risks, had prepared for the possibility that he wouldn't return. And he had entrusted me with the task of carrying on his work. The weight of it was almost unbearable. I was just Aurora, A woman who had lost her brother. I wasn't a scholar, or an adventurer, or a hero. But I was Elias's sister. And I owed him more than just tears. I started small. I visited the local library, spending hours poring over dusty books and ancient manuscripts. I snuck into Elias's old room, searching for any scrap of information that might help me understand his research. His maps, his notes, his collection of odd trinkets. They were all pieces of the puzzle. I learned about the artifact, its history, its power. I discovered that it was more than just a relic. It was a key, a gateway to something ancient and dangerous. And I realized that Elias hadn't just been searching for knowledge. He had been protecting the world from something terrible. The grief was still there, a constant undercurrent in my life. But it was no longer the only thing I felt. A new emotion was taking root, a quiet, determined resolve. I wouldn't let Elias's sacrifice be in vain. I would carry on his work, protect the artifact, and safeguard the world from whatever darkness he had been fighting. The nights were the hardest. Alone in the darkness, the memories would come flooding back, overwhelming me with grief and regret. I would cry until I was numb, my body shaking with sobs. But even in the depths of my despair, I would find a flicker of strength, a reminder of the promise I had made to Elias. I started to see the world differently. Shadows seemed deeper. Trust became a fragile thing. I felt the weight of the artifact, a constant reminder of the burden I carried. But I also felt a sense of purpose, a feeling that I was part of something larger than myself. My family noticed the change in me. They saw me spending hours in the library, poring over books and maps. They saw the haunted look in my eyes, the way I flinched at sudden noises. They worried about me, tried to coax me out of my shell. But I couldn't tell them the truth. Not yet. The silence was a heavy cloak, suffocating me with its weight. But it was also a shield, protecting me from the prying eyes of the world. I had to keep Elias's secret, protect the artifact, and prepare for whatever was to come. It was a lonely path, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But I wasn't afraid. I had Elias's memory to guide me, his diary to inspire me, and the artifact to protect me. And I had something else, something that had been dormant for years, something that was now beginning to awaken within me. A quiet, unwavering strength. The diary became my anchor, my confidant, my guide. I wrote in it every night, pouring out my thoughts, my fears, my hopes. It was a way to keep Elias alive, to keep his memory from fading. And it was a way to keep myself sane, to remind myself that I wasn't alone in this fight. I wasn't sure where this path would lead, or what challenges I would face. But I knew that I couldn't give up. I had to keep going, for Elias, for myself, for the world. The artifact pulsed against my skin, a silent promise, a heavy responsibility. And I was ready. Or at least I would be. I had to be. Willow Creek. It became a ghost town in my heart the day I left. Not literally, of course. People still lived there, went about their lives, raised their families. But for me it was a place of echoes. Echoes of laughter, of shared meals, of stolen kisses under the old oak tree. Echoes that were too painful to bear, too raw to let heal. The weight of Elias's absence pressed down on me there. A constant, suffocating reminder of everything I had lost. So I left. Not with fanfare or goodbyes, just a quiet slipping away one cool autumn morning. The leaves were turning, swirling crimson and gold in the crisp air. A beautiful, melancholic farewell. I carried everything I owned in a worn leather satchel, Elias's diary, the strange artifact, a few changes of clothes, and the weight of my grief. My destination was a city I'd only seen on maps, a sprawling metropolis teeming with anonymous faces. I chose it for its sheer size, its ability to swallow a person whole. I needed to disappear, to become a shadow in the crowd, a whisper in the wind. I found a small, sparsely furnished room in a boarding house on the outskirts, a place where the sounds of the city, the clatter of streetcars, the rumble of trucks, the distant sirens filled the silence I was so desperately trying to escape. The first few weeks were a blur of loneliness and disorientation. I wandered the city streets, a stranger in a strange land, my heart aching with every step. I missed the familiar faces of Willow Creek, the gentle rhythm of small-town life. But I knew I couldn't go back. Not yet, maybe not ever. My purpose now lay elsewhere, buried within the pages of Elias's diary, and the secrets held within the artifact. That little metal box. It became my obsession, my reason for breathing. I spent hours poring over Elias's notes, deciphering his cryptic handwriting, tracing the strange symbols etched onto its surface. The library became my sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in dusty tomes and forgotten languages. I devoured books on cryptography, on history, on anything that might shed light on the artifact's true nature. It wasn't just an encryption device, I slowly began to realize. It was something far more profound, far more dangerous. Elias had hinted at its true power in his diary, calling it a key to unlocking the enemy's mind. He believed it could be used to decipher their codes, to anticipate their moves, to turn the tide of the war. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. I was a simple girl from a small town, suddenly entrusted with a weapon that could potentially change the course of history. The responsibility was immense, almost crushing. But I couldn't back down. Elias had sacrificed everything to protect this artifact, and I owed it to him, to the world, to see his work through. So I began to train myself. I learned to observe, to listen, to blend in. I studied the art of deception, the subtle nuances of human behavior. I practiced reading faces, deciphering body language, picking up on hidden cues. I became a student of the shadows, a silent observer in the bustling city streets. I'd spend hours in crowded cafes, eavesdropping on conversations, noting the way people interacted with each other. I learned to spot inconsistencies, to identify lies, to detect hidden agendas. I practiced my own deception skills, crafting believable stories, adopting different personas, becoming a chameleon in the urban landscape. One evening, while sitting in a dimly lit bar, I overheard two men speaking in hushed tones. Their conversation was fragmented, filled with coded language and veiled references. But something about their demeanor, the way they glanced nervously around the room, triggered a warning bell in my mind. I discreetly jotted down a few key phrases on a napkin, my heart pounding in my chest. Back in my room, I fed the phrases into the artifact, meticulously adjusting the settings based on Elias's notes. After hours of painstaking work, the artifact finally crackled to life, spitting out a string of decrypted text. The message was chilling. It detailed a planned attack on a nearby munitions factory, a devastating blow that could cripple the war effort. I knew I had to act, but I also knew I couldn't go to the authorities. They wouldn't believe me. A lone woman with a strange artifact and a cryptic message. So I took matters into my own hands. I used the information I had gleaned from the message to identify the factory's security weaknesses. I spent days observing the guards, mapping their patrol routes, identifying blind spots. I devised a plan, a risky and audacious plan, to alert the factory workers to the impending attack. Under the cloak of darkness, I slipped into the factory grounds, navigating the labyrinthine corridors with practiced ease. I planted a series of coded messages, hidden in plain sight, designed to trigger an evacuation. Then I slipped away, melting back into the shadows, leaving the fate of the factory in the hands of those who worked there. The next morning, I awoke to the sound of sirens. The attack had been thwarted. The factory workers had evacuated in time, preventing a catastrophic loss of life. I had done it. I had used the artifact to save lives, to make a difference in the war. But my victory was bittersweet. I knew that my actions had not gone unnoticed. The enemy was out there, searching for the artifact, searching for me. I had to be even more careful, even more vigilant. The stakes had been raised, and the danger was ever present. There were moments in the quiet solitude of my room when I felt overwhelmed by the weight of my responsibility. The loneliness was a constant companion, a gnawing emptiness that threatened to consume me. I missed Elias terribly, his warmth, his laughter, his unwavering belief in me. But then I would look at the artifact, at the intricate carvings on its surface, and I would remember his sacrifice. I would remember his words, his unwavering determination to fight for what was right. And I would find the strength to carry on, to face the darkness, to protect the artifact at all costs. The war raged on, a relentless tide of destruction sweeping across the globe. And I, a simple girl from Willow Creek, armed with a hidden diary and a mysterious artifact, became a silent warrior in the shadows, fighting for a future I could only dream of. It was a lonely life, a dangerous life, but it was my life. And I would not surrender. Not while there was still hope. One evening as I walked home from the library, I noticed a man following me. He was tall and imposing with a cold, calculating gaze. He wore a dark coat and a fedora, pulled low over his eyes. He moved with a quiet confidence that sent a shiver down my spine. I knew he was one of them, one of the Nazis sent to track me down to retrieve the artifact. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath caught in my throat. I had to act fast. I ducked into a crowded marketplace, weaving through the throngs of people, trying to lose myself in the chaos. I glanced back, but he was still there, his eyes scanning the crowd, searching for me. I knew I couldn't outrun him. He was too experienced, too determined. I had to outsmart him. I spotted a narrow alleyway, leading into the darkness. I took a deep breath and plunged into the shadows, hoping against hope that I could evade his grasp. The alleyway was dark and damp, filled with the stench of rotting garbage. I could hear the man's footsteps behind me, growing closer with each passing second. I stumbled and fell, scraping my knees on the rough pavement. I scrambled to my feet and ran, my lungs burning, my legs aching. I reached the end of the alleyway and burst out onto a busy street. I looked back, but the man was gone. I had escaped for now, but I knew he would be back. They would all be back. The hunt for the artifact had just begun, and I was the prey. Grandma Aurora pauses, takes a deep breath, her eyes filled with a faraway look. That was the beginning, child. The beginning of a long and dangerous game. A game of cat and mouse played in the shadows of a world at war. And I, a simple girl from Willow Creek, was about to learn just how far I was willing to go to protect the legacy of the man I loved. Okay, child, settle in. Let me tell you about the end of the war and how your grandma, this old woman you see before you, finally found peace. It's a story etched in my heart, just like the lines on my hands, each one a memory. After Elias, after I lost him, I felt a coldness settle inside me. Not a hatred, mind you, but a steely resolve. I knew what had to be done. The artifact, that beautiful, cursed thing, became my lifeline, my connection to the world beyond Willow Creek. A world teetering on the brink of destruction. Every night, under the cloak of darkness, I would use it. The music box, you see, wasn't just a pretty container. It amplified the signal, allowed me to reach ears across the ocean, ears desperate for the information I could provide. It was a dangerous game, a constant dance with discovery. I remember the nights, the wind howling outside, mimicking the turmoil within me, as I deciphered coded messages, transmitted troop movements, and revealed enemy strategies. My fingers, now gnarled with age, would fly across the keys of the transmitter, each tap a prayer, a plea for safety, for victory, for an end to the madness. There were close calls, of course. Once, a German patrol came within a stone's throw of the cottage. I remember scrambling to hide the equipment, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I covered the music box with a crocheted blanket, the one your great-grandmother made, hoping its innocent appearance would deter suspicion. They searched the house, their boots thudding on the wooden floor, their voices harsh and guttural. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't lift the blanket, wouldn't discover the truth hidden beneath. They didn't. They left, leaving behind a silence that was almost as deafening as their presence. But it wasn't just fear that fueled me. It was the knowledge that I was making a difference. The messages I sent helped to reroute convoys, saving countless lives. They exposed enemy ambushes, preventing devastating defeats. I heard whispers, fragments of conversations gleaned from the airwaves, that spoke of a phantom informant who seemed to know the enemy's every move. I was a ghost in the machine, a silent guardian angel, and that knowledge, that purpose, kept me going. Then one day the tide began to turn. The news trickled in, slow at first, then a torrent. Allied victories, one after another. The enemy was retreating, their forces crumbling. I remember the day I heard the news of the Normandy landings. I sat by the window watching the rain fall and I wept. Not tears of sadness but tears of relief, of hope. The end was in sight. And then it came. The day the war ended. I remember it so vividly. The church bells ringing, people dancing in the streets, the air filled with shouts of joy and disbelief. The world exhaled, a collective sigh of relief that echoed across continents. I stood on the porch of the cottage, the music box clutched in my hands, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a burden I had carried for so long. The coldness inside me began to thaw, replaced by a warmth that spread through my veins, a feeling of peace. But peace, I soon learned, wasn't just the absence of war. It was something more. It was a chance to rebuild, to heal, to create something beautiful from the ashes of destruction. I couldn't stay in Willow Creek. The memories were too strong, too painful. So I packed my few belongings, the music box nestled safely amongst them, and I moved to a small town not far from here. Place where I could start anew. I found work at a local school, helping children who had been displaced by the war. Many of them had lost their parents, their homes, their sense of security. I understood their pain, their fear, their longing for something familiar. I taught them to read, to write, to draw, to sing. I showed them that even in the darkest of times, there was still beauty to be found, still hope to be cherished. I poured myself into that work, into those children. They became my family, my purpose. I listened to their stories, their dreams, their fears. I held their hands, wiped their tears, and reminded them that they were loved, that they were not alone. And in doing so, I began to heal myself. The artifact, the music box, I never used it again for its intended purpose. But I kept it. It was a reminder of Elias, of his love, his sacrifice, his unwavering belief in what was right. I would often sit in the evenings, the music box on my lap, and I would run my fingers over its smooth surface, remembering his smile, his touch, his voice. It wasn't a source of pain anymore, but a source of comfort, of connection. Years passed. The children grew up, started families of their own. I watched them flourish, their lives a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. And slowly, gradually, I became the woman you know, the grandma you love. The woman with the wrinkles and the gray hair and the endless supply of cookies. I learned to knit, to garden, to bake. I joined the local church, volunteered at the soup kitchen, and became a fixture at the town's annual fair. I filled my life with simple pleasures, with acts of kindness, with the quiet joy of being present in the moment. The war never truly left me, of course. It was always there, a shadow in the background, a reminder of the fragility of peace. But it didn't define me, didn't consume me. I learned to live with it, to accept it as part of my story, a story that also included love, loss, sacrifice, and ultimately redemption. And that, my dear, is how I became your grandma. Not through some grand design, but through a series of choices, of challenges, of triumphs and failures. I wasn't always this serene, this wise. I was once a young woman, filled with passion and fear, thrust into a world of chaos and uncertainty. But I survived. I learned. I grew. And I found my own way to make a difference, to leave the world a little bit brighter than I found it. Now about the diary. You see, I wanted you to understand the woman behind the wrinkles, the story behind the smile. I wanted you to know that even ordinary people can do extraordinary things, that love can conquer hate, that hope can triumph over despair, and that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found. The music box, the diary, they are more than just objects, child. They are symbols. Symbols of love, of sacrifice, of resilience. They are a reminder of the past, a guide for the future, and they are a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. And as for your mother, well, sometimes even family can lose their way. But remember this, child. Forgiveness is a powerful thing. And love, true love, never truly dies. It may be hidden, buried beneath layers of anger and resentment, but it's always there, waiting to be rediscovered. And I believe with all my heart that one day your mother will find her way back to you, back to us. Because that, my dear, is the legacy of Aurora. A legacy of love, of hope, and of unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity. Now, come here and give your old grandma a hug. It's getting late, and I think it's time we put on some music. Maybe something a little more cheerful than the war tunes, eh? The sun, a pale watercolor wash across the morning sky, filtered through the lace curtains of Aurora's room, dappling the worn wooden floor with light. I sat there, the diary resting open in my lap, the scent of aged paper and lavender clinging to the air like a comforting phantom. The legal battles were over. My daughter, consumed by a need I still couldn't fully grasp, had finally relented. The house, more than just bricks and mortar, was safe. But the victory felt hollow, secondary to the profound shift that had taken place within me. Aurora's diary, once a hidden secret, had become a map, not just of her life, but of my own understanding of it. I reread a passage about a time when Aurora, as a young woman, had lost her job during the Depression. The stark reality of it, The fear etched in her looping handwriting resonated with a force that the stories she'd told me as a child never could. Those stories, spun with whimsy and filled with talking animals and magical solutions, suddenly seemed less like simple entertainment and more like carefully crafted lessons, veiled in fantastical imagery to soften the harsh edges of her own experiences. The clever fox who outsmarted the greedy farmer? A metaphor for her own resilience in the face of hardship. The little bird who built its nest despite the raging storm? A symbol of her unwavering hope. I remembered her telling me the story of a princess locked in a tower, waiting for a prince to rescue her. As a child, I'd been captivated by the romance of it. Now I realized the princess wasn't waiting for rescue. She was learning to climb down herself, brick by painstaking brick. Aurora hadn't been telling me about damsels in distress. She'd been teaching me self-reliance, planting the seeds of strength in my young heart. She had been preparing me, without me even realizing it, for the inevitable towers that life would construct around me. The diary revealed a life lived with a quiet, unwavering courage. It wasn't the kind of courage splashed across headlines or celebrated in grand pronouncements. It was the everyday courage of facing adversity with grace, of choosing kindness even when wounded, of holding on to hope when the world seemed determined to extinguish it. I had always seen Aurora as a kind, gentle woman, a loving grandmother. But the diary unveiled a depth of resilience, a wellspring of inner strength that I had never fully appreciated. Her legacy wasn't just the house, or the stories, or even the carefully preserved artifacts tucked away in dusty boxes. Her true legacy was the way she lived, the values she embodied, the wisdom she imparted through the simplest of gestures. It was the way she always had time to listen, the way she always found a reason to smile, the way she always managed to make me feel loved and cherished, even when I felt lost and uncertain. I thought about my daughter, about the anger and resentment that had driven her actions. I couldn't condone what she had done, but the diary had given me a sliver of understanding. Perhaps she too was searching for something tangible, something concrete to anchor her in a world that often felt chaotic and unpredictable. Perhaps she saw the house as a symbol of security, of stability, a way to protect herself from the uncertainties of the future. Maybe, in her own way, she was also trying to climb down her own tower. The diary entry from the day my father died was particularly poignant. Aurora wrote about the unbearable pain of loss, the feeling of being adrift in a sea of grief. But she also wrote about the enduring power of love, the way it could transcend even death, the way it could continue to nourish and sustain us long after the person we loved was gone. She wrote about the importance of remembering, of keeping their stories alive, of passing on their values to future generations. That entry resonated with me on a profound level. I realized that the diary wasn't just a record of Aurora's life. It was a conversation across time, a bridge connecting the past, present, and future. It was a reminder that we are all part of something larger than ourselves, that we are all connected to the generations that came before us, and that we have a responsibility to pass on their wisdom and their love to the generations that will come after us. The afternoon I spent reading about her life was filled with a strange mixture of sadness and joy. Sadness for the hardships she had endured, the sacrifices she had made, the dreams she had deferred. But also joy for the richness of her life, the depth of her love, the unwavering strength of her spirit. I felt a profound sense of gratitude for having had her in my life, for having been blessed with her love and her wisdom. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, I closed the diary, its leather cover worn smooth by years of loving use. I held it close to my chest, feeling the weight of it, not just physically but emotionally. It was more than just a book. It was a treasure, a legacy, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. I knew that I would never look at Aurora or her stories or even this old house in the same way again. The diary had opened my eyes to a whole new dimension of understanding, revealing the layers of complexity and nuance that lay beneath the surface of her seemingly simple life. It had taught me the importance of looking beyond the obvious, of seeking out the hidden stories, of honoring the sacrifices that have been made for us. I realized that Aurora's true gift wasn't the house or the diary, but the example she set, the way she lived her life with courage, compassion, and unwavering love. And that was a gift that I could pass on to my own daughter, and to her children, and to all the generations that would follow. It was a gift that would continue to resonate long after I was gone. That night I dreamt of Aurora. She was young and vibrant, her eyes sparkling with mischief and intelligence. She was standing in a field of wildflowers, her arms outstretched, beckoning me to join her. I ran towards her, feeling a lightness in my step, a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. As I reached her, she smiled and took my hand. "Don't forget," she whispered, her voice as soft as a summer breeze. "Don't forget to tell the stories." I woke up with a start, the memory of the dream vivid in my mind. I knew what I had to do. I had to share Aurora's story, not just with my family, but with the world. I had to let others know about her courage, her wisdom, her unwavering love. I had to inspire them to seek out their own hidden stories, to honor their own ancestors, to pass on their own legacies to future generations. The house, once a source of conflict and division, had become a symbol of unity and connection. It was a reminder that we are all part of something larger than ourselves, that we are all connected to the past, present, and future. And it was a reminder that the most valuable things in life are not material possessions, but the love, the wisdom, and the stories that we share with one another. I picked up the diary again, its pages filled with Aurora's words, her thoughts, her dreams. I knew that I would continue to read it, to learn from it, to be inspired by it, for the rest of my life. It was a treasure that I would cherish forever, a reminder of the woman who had shaped my life in so many ways. Aurora's diary wasn't just a collection of memories. It was a testament to the enduring power of love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the importance of honoring our past. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, and that even the smallest of gestures can have a profound impact on the world. And it was a reminder that the most important legacy we can leave behind is the story of our lives, a story that will continue to inspire and uplift those who come after us. It was a story of strength, of love, of unwavering belief in the good in people, even when the world showed its uglier side. It was a story I was now entrusted to tell. And I would. All right, darlings, let's gather round one last time. Let's hold on to the warmth of Aurora's spirit, the echo of her laughter, and the quiet wisdom gleaned from a life lived with both ferocious love and unwavering resilience. Because that, my dears, is the heart of this story. Not just a tale of a house and a will, but a testament to the enduring power of a mother's love, a grandmother's protectiveness, and the quiet strength that blooms in the face of adversity. Aurora's story is a symphony of sacrifice, courage, and the unwavering belief in the good that resides, however hidden, within each of us. She wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. Aurora made mistakes, as we all do. She stumbled, she doubted, she even, for a time, lost her way in the shadows of her own fears. But she never stopped loving. She never stopped fighting for what she believed in. And she never ever gave up on her family. That, my dears, is what makes her story so profoundly beautiful, so achingly human. It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, even when we feel lost and alone, the light of love can guide us home. This house, this old creaky, sometimes maddening house, was more than just bricks and mortar to Aurora. It was a sanctuary, a haven, a testament to the dreams she held for her family. It was a place where laughter echoed through the hallways, where tears were dried with gentle hands, and where the aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the scent of blooming roses. It was a living, breathing entity, imbued with the spirit of generations past, and a promise of generations to come. And when she saw that promise threatened, when she felt the chilling winds of greed and betrayal circling her beloved home, she knew she had to act. The diary, that unassuming little book filled with her messy handwriting and heartfelt confessions, wasn't just a record of her life. It was her weapon, her shield, her final act of defiance against the forces that threatened to tear her family apart. It was a testament to her cunning, her foresight, and her unwavering belief in the power of truth. She knew that words like seeds could blossom into something beautiful and strong, capable of weathering even the fiercest storms. And she planted those seeds with care, knowing that one day, they would bloom into a garden of understanding and forgiveness. Think about the weight she carried, the secrets she guarded, the burdens she bore in silence. Imagine the sleepless nights, the quiet anxieties, the constant worry for her daughter, even when that daughter seemed determined to push her away. She never stopped loving her, not for a single moment. And that, my dears, is the most profound lesson Aurora's story teaches us. That love is not always easy, that it often demands sacrifice, and that it can be the most powerful force in the world. And what of Clara? Ah, sweet Clara, caught in the tangled web of her own insecurities and resentments. She too was a victim of circumstance, a product of her own pain and unresolved issues. She yearned for love, for acceptance, for a sense of belonging, but she searched for it in all the wrong places. She allowed greed to cloud her judgment, and she almost lost everything in the process. But even in her darkest moments, there was a flicker of light within her, a spark of hope that Aurora refused to let die. Aurora understood that Clara's actions stemmed from a deep-seated pain, a wound that had festered for years. She knew that the only way to heal that wound was with love, compassion, and understanding. And so she orchestrated a plan, a delicate dance of truth and revelation, designed to expose Clara's vulnerabilities and to ultimately lead her back to the path of healing. It was a risky gamble, but Aurora knew that the stakes were too high to do nothing. She had to fight for her daughter, even if it meant confronting her own deepest fears. And in the end, love prevailed. Clara, confronted with the truth of her mother's sacrifices and the depth of her unwavering love, was forced to confront her own demons. She saw the pain she had inflicted, the damage she had caused, and the profound loss she had almost suffered. And in that moment of clarity, she chose to heal, to forgive, and to embrace the love that had always been there, waiting for her. Aurora's legacy isn't just about the house. It's about the love that filled it, the memories that were made within its walls, and the lessons that were learned within its embrace. It's about the power of forgiveness, the importance of family, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, even when we feel like giving up, we can find the courage to persevere, to love, and to ultimately find our way back home. If Aurora's story has touched your heart, if it has resonated with your own experiences, then it has served its purpose. Stories like hers live on through those who hear them, those who share them, and those who allow them to shape their own lives. They remind us that we are not alone, that our struggles are universal, and that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future. And that brings me to you, my dears. You who have listened patiently, who have shared your own stories, and who have opened your hearts to the wisdom of a grandmother's tale. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your presence, your engagement, your willingness to listen, has given this story a life of its own. Please, if Aurora's story moved you, if it sparked a flicker of recognition within your own heart, leave a like. It's a small gesture, but it means the world to know that her story has touched others. Subscribe to our channel if you yearn for more heartfelt tales, stories that celebrate the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of love. We have so many more stories waiting to be told, stories that will make you laugh, cry, and ultimately, feel a little less alone in this world. And most importantly, share your thoughts below. What resonated with you the most? What lessons did you learn from Aurora's journey? Have you ever faced a similar situation in your own life? Your comments, your perspectives, your stories are what make this community so special. Let us create a space where we can share our experiences, support one another, and learn from the wisdom of those who have come before us. Because that, my dears, is what storytelling is all about. It's about connecting with one another, about sharing our humanity, and about finding solace and inspiration in the stories of others. It's about remembering that we are all connected, that we are all part of something larger than ourselves, and that even in our darkest moments, we are never truly alone. Think about the secrets whispered in the quiet corners of this story. Consider the weight of unspoken words, the power of hidden truths, and the enduring strength of a mother's love. What secret do you believe Grandma Aurora held closest to her heart? Was it the fear of losing her daughter? Was it the pain of her own past? Or was it the unwavering belief in the power of forgiveness? Let your thoughts flow, my dears. Let your voices be heard. Let us create a tapestry of shared experiences, woven together with threads of compassion, understanding, and love. And remember, my darlings, that Aurora's story doesn't end here. It lives on in your hearts, in your memories, and in the choices you make each and every day. Let her courage inspire you to face your own challenges with grace and resilience. Let her love remind you to cherish your family and to forgive those who have wronged you. and let her wisdom guide you on your own path as you navigate the twists and turns of this beautiful, messy, and unpredictable life. So go now, my dears. Carry the spirit of Aurora with you. Share her story with those you love. And remember, always, that even in the face of adversity, the light of love can always guide you home. And know that I, your humble storyteller, will be waiting here, ready to share another tale, another lesson, another glimpse into the extraordinary tapestry of human life. Until then, may your days be filled with laughter, love, and the unwavering belief in the power of a good story. And may you always remember the quiet strength of Grandma Aurora. Good night, my darlings, and sweet dreams.